Hello everyone, this is Mary Gregory. I hope everyone is doing well. We are into the middle, almost the end of October. My goodness, where did the time go? I feel like January just came in. Here it is, October, and we're going to be doing Thanksgiving and Christmas, so time is just going by. Maybe I feel like it's going by a little too fast because I'm older now. But it's all good. I want to welcome you all to our video today. Some of you all follow me. Some of you all, this may be your first time finding me out here on YouTube. I am Mary Gregory. I'm a RHIT. CCS stands for Certified Coding Specialist. I have my CDIP, which is a Certified Documentation Improvement practitioner. I'm thinking that they've changed that a little bit. Integrity, maybe? I got my CPC, Certified Professional Coder, my CRC, Certified Risk Adjustment Coder, and CCSP. Maybe it's one day we need to talk about, get back to the basics again of talking about the different certifications. There are so many different certifications you can have now. And in fact, it almost seems like it's a move now in this country where, say you code orthopedics, they may want you to have an orthopedic certification. Or you may be an ED coder, emergency department. They may want you to have that. And there are times when someone would say to me recently, they said, well, we're looking for an orthopedic auditor. And I thought, okay. And then they said, well, have you ever done orthopedic coding? Yes, I have. But I didn't really pursue it. I just kind of put it out there. And so they didn't call me back. And you know what? At this point in my life, I'm okay with that. I know how to code orthopedics. And I know how to audit orthopedics charts. And so I think what I want to get across to you today is this, before we get into our lesson. Sometimes when we may go after a job and we don't get it. Don't let that discourage you, okay? That doesn't mean you're not a good coder. Doesn't mean you're not a bad coder. I think as I have matured in life, I have found out that a lot of things influence people's decisions. And you may not have anything to do with it at all. But sometimes you will have something to do with it. So as a coder, a new coder, or maybe you're looking to switch jobs, make sure you put your best foot forward. Make sure you're positive and upbeat. You do your homework. You find out what this company is really looking for. And once you do all that, you may get the job or you may not. But just because you don't get it don't mean that you wasn't capable. And I just wanted to put that out there today. Not sure why, but I just felt the need to do that. Today we're going to be talking about, we're continuing our path, our journey through certification. What you need to know on a certification. Now, what we're going to talk about today, and just about everything we've been talking about and getting your certification. It doesn't matter if you're getting your CCS certification, your CPC certification, your CRC certification. A lot of these certifications, you're going to have to do diagnosis coding. Now, that certification may be lean heavy in maybe that CPT arena. It may lean a little bit heavier when you're doing inpatient to the PCS part of it. But nevertheless, you are going to have some diagnosis coding scenarios. And it's very important that you know the rules. And you understand the rules and you know how to apply the rules. I find that quite a few people that do not pass some of these tests, they're very deficient sometimes in diagnosis coding and how to apply the rules, especially when they give you these scenarios. But if you know the rule and you think through it critically, then you're going to be okay. So today, the next two, I believe, we'll be talking about, let's call it complication of care. Complication of care, and we're going to be dealing with postoperative, intraoperative, or you may see the word term pre-procedural complications. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to be using our official coding guidelines. I am actually going to be using my 2023. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm using 2023 is because as of October 1st, discharges, we are coding everything now based on 2023 guidelines. So we're going to look at now the number. You know, these guidelines are in numbers for us. They're in sections and then they're in numbers. And your first section of your official coding guidelines deal with all the general coding guidelines. And these general coding guidelines applies to every arena of coding. And it's going to apply to every certification test that you may take. So that's why I've always stressed the importance of these guidelines. So we're going to be talking about, there's two areas in the official coding guidelines that deal with complication of care, as they like to call it. Okay? Today we may just get into the one in the general coding guideline. And so if you go to general coding guideline, I think they're labeled like 1B.16. So if you go to your general coding guidelines and look for number 16, in those coding guidelines, it talks about the documentation of the complication of care. The first thing they say in this rule is this: code assignment is based on the provider documentation of the relationship between the condition and the procedure. It could be, sometimes, you know, I use procedure and operative procedure the same, but you know, when you have a procedure, some procedure will take place in an operating room, some procedure could take place in outpatient surgeries, some procedures can take place in what we call endoscopy rooms. They can take procedures now can be done in what they call vascular units. So it doesn't, or I know this may come as a shock, but some procedures can actually be done in the patient room, in the bed. It doesn't matter where the procedure is done. What matters is the procedure happened. And the patient may or may not have a complication from it. A complication is the result of the procedure. And so in our guidelines, when you break this guideline down, the first thing they tell us as coders is this: the code assignment have to be based on that provider documentation of that relationship between the condition that you're looking at and the procedure. They said unless you have a different instruction in the classification. Okay? They said the guideline extends to any complication of care, regardless of the chapter the code is in. Now, you may say, well, what they mean by that, Mary? Well, in your ICD-10 book, some of the chapters have, this is in the tabular, okay? Now, if you're taking a test, most of the time they are going to give you the answers. It may be 4 different choices, but rarely do you have to fill in a blank, but you could. You have to know how to find a code. And even if they give you the answers on the test, when you get a job, they expect for you to know how to find a code. So if you know how to use this index, then you will be okay in finding a code. Now, you can actually, in your index, go to complication. Always remember, in the ICD-10 CM index is set up by what is wrong with the patient, what is that patient problem, what is that patient's symptoms, or what is the patient concern. And so if your patient come in with a post-operative bleed, you can actually go to complication. And you'll follow that down in your index. You can also go to post-operative. There's several different ways you can sometimes get to a code. And as you grow in your coding, if you're an inexperienced coder, then you will begin to find different ways of finding things. Now, in this 2023 book that I have, this complication starts on page, now I'm using an AAPC book. I don't have a problem if you got an Optum book, if you got a Nahima book, doesn't matter. What happened with some of these books, some of them put a little bit more notes in there for you. But everybody, the index have to look the same. They can't change the index. They can't change the tablet. That comes from CMS or whoever's in charge now, the World Health Organization, have the basic book, and then our book is called CM, Clinical Modification, because that means the ICD-10 that the World Health use is different, a little different from what we use, because we have modified this book to meet our needs here in the United States of America. So complication began on page 95. The one thing that this complication section can get, but let me do this. I just want you to see how long this complication is. It starts on 95 and ends on page 105. And we're talking about 3 rows on each page of complication. And so when you go to complication, what is the complication? So the index, they got accidental puncture or laceration. You can have a complication of a stump. Always remember your subterms are alphabetical as well, except the one is width. The width is always at the top, right up under the main term. So anyway, I don't want to get lost there, but you have to know how to find a code. That is just key. You got to. So you can go to complication. You can go to post-operative. You can, if the patient is hemorrhaging, you can actually go to hemorrhage, and it may tell you it may tell you to see complication. So let's get back over to our documentation of care. So what they mean by that, it could be in any chapter. So we talked about the index. I'm going to go over here to chapter 9, which is your cardiovascular diseases. Chapter 9 is diseases of the circulatory system. Now, every chapter will not have post-operative or procedure complication in them, okay? Like dermatitis, if you go to skin and subcutaneous tissue, you will not find any complication codes in that chapter. But in chapter 9, when you get to I-97.1, that's my category, and my category is that other post-procedure cardiac function disturbances. And underneath that, I have some post-operative procedure codes. And so what that rule is saying is this: you may have some complication in this chapter, but you can also have complication in chapter 19, which is injuries and other complication of care or something like that. So notice the I-97 is the beginning of any type of post-operative or post-procedure complication that is in the circulatory system, generally the heart. And so notice you got post-procedure cardiac insufficiency. Is it following a cardiac catheterization? So you have some other options there that you have to look at as well. Now notice, look at I-9713. I should have told you, I'll make sure you have your book. Look at your I-9713, and your book can be an electronic book. It said post-procedure heart failure. So they're saying that the patient has heart failure due to that procedure. Now further down in that complication a paragraph where they talk about the complication of care, it tells you that everything that happened after a procedure is not a result of the procedure. So you have to be very careful with this one. So anyway, we got, let's see, let me find it again. Post-procedure heart failure. In my book, they have it in red. They said use an additional code to identify the heart failure. You may not find that note under every code, but always think this way. When I use this code, does it describe everything that's wrong with the patient? And so if you look at I-9713, post-procedure heart failure, it just tells you the patient got heart failure and it's due to a procedure. But it doesn't tell you what type of heart failure. So if you go to your I-50 category, you will find that you have systolic heart failure, you got diastolic heart failure, you got a combination heart failure, systolic and diastolic, you got right heart failure. So you need an additional code to not only say, hey, this heart failure is a result of the procedure, and this is the type of heart failure we have. Okay, we're going to have to finish this one on the next go-round. This may take a little bit longer than I thought. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this class today. I hope you got something out of it. Remember, you can follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. I believe Twitter. I'm not on TikTok yet. We do have an Instagram account. So always look out for Mary Gregory of Mass Coding Solutions on those social media platforms. Don't forget to follow us on www.mascodingsolutions.com. That's our website. And as always, coders get paid to think, and I'll see you the next time.